Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What If You Could. And a person that I admire very much, who we're coming back. We just had so much fun. We're going to do another. I'm sure you remember Dr. David Wright. There's so much to Dr. David's bio, not just the fact of being a doctor, of being an MD, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that I find so intriguing about the doctor is instead of pursuing a residency in psychiatry, Dr. David chose to study and train in a discipline that were more in line with the techniques used by the father and uncle of psychiatry, Dr. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychiatry, and Dr. Milton Erikson, the uncle of psychiatry. As such, he chose to approach mental health from a more natural, holistic, root-caused, logic-centered, psychoanalytical and psychodynamic outlook, right? Which I think is what intrigues me most. So instead of choosing an approach primarily based on handing out pills and simply just addressing the surface symptoms, Dr. David goes a lot deeper, goes to the root causes. And so that's very intriguing to me. We wanted to touch on that, but we also kind of want to talk about a social, economical, social, generational challenge that I think we both agree on. And I said, we kind of talked about that. Why don't you fire away on what we were kind of go with on this free stuff thing?
Yeah. So, thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. That was really, really gracious. And I'll just share something too, which I went to a pharmaceutical dinner recently and I shared it. And because there was a lot of different healthcare providers there. It was a really good presentation. It was on a long acting injectable. So as you know, in the field of psychiatry, and even though I don't practice psychiatry, I consult in forensic and addiction psychiatry, and I've been doing that for 15 years. So I'm pretty well versed in it.
I'm sorry, did you say injectable? What was that?
Yeah, so long acting injectables or LAIs. So the dinner program, and it was a brilliant psychiatrist, Dr. Meyer. I can't remember his first name, but Dr. Meyer from UCLA or UCSD. He's a psychiatrist there who talked about, and it was a specific drug product, a specific program and product. It was a long acting injectable, LAI. And LAIs are really good because they solve a problem in psychiatry called noncompliance. And that's basically where a patient stops taking their medication because they don't like the side effects, or they think they are better and don't need them anymore, or some similar reason to that. So long acting injectables are great because you don't have to worry about a patient taking a pill. So basically they receive an injection, and that injection, depending on the product, lasts anywhere from 1, 2, 3, and they're getting up to 6 and 12 months. So you don't have to worry about a patient missing their doses or forgetting to take pills or things like that, especially with conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar or major depressive disorder that's refractory or treatment resistant, that can really throw off a person's life. And so it's hard to have a good quality of life if you go back into psychosis or you go back into manic episodes with bipolar disorder or things like that. It's really, you can't hold down a job. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And with major depressive disorder or people with panic disorder and other things. So those long acting injectables are really, really helpful in terms of compliance because you don't have to worry about whether a patient is taking their pills or faking to their whoever makes sure that they're taking their pills, whether they're faking it or spitting them out or anything like that.
That just happened to a very good friend of mine. He self-diagnosed the fact, like you said, that I'm better. I'm halfway through my medication. I'm better. And I don't like what these are doing to me a little bit as far as impotence or whatever. He was struggling with some of the side effects, and he just stopped and literally lied to his doctor. Like, yeah, I'm still taking these, and I feel great. They're working real well. So I could see. And then what happened? Boom. I mean, he just crashed hard. It was bad. And so I could see how that could really be helpful. I'm normally against something like that, because I worry about you to inject something for that long, that has that long of a lifespan inside you. Right. But in this case, boy, it would have really made a difference for my friend, for sure.
So long-acting injectables have really been increasing in prevalence from drug makers for conditions like treatment-resistant depression, or bipolar disorder, and especially for schizophrenia. And so there was a dinner program by a pharmaceutical company that I attended. And we were going around the room, and they usually ask you to, introduce yourself or something like that. Or they have, in this case, it wasn't just physicians or MDs at the meeting. It was therapists, it was counselors, it was office staff, facilities, treatment centers, hospital personnel, all kinds of people. So it was a broad audience. But one of the psychiatrists there asked me about why I didn't go into psychiatry. And and one of the things that I explained to him was this concept is, kids always have heroes when they're growing up. You know what I mean? Usually, I think most kids do. I did. And, Freud was one of my heroes because Sigmund Freud, number one, he was brilliant like Einstein, but he transitioned from neurosurgery to psychiatry. So he doesn't start off as a psychiatrist.
So wait a minute. Huh. Yes, most kids have heroes. It's Superman, it's Kobe Bryant. So yours was Sigmund Freud?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And I discovered him by my parents' bookshelf. So my parents, highly educated, always had a huge bookshelf with all these books. And once I got old enough, I got curious. And I'm like, oh, really? Psychoanalysis? What is that? Oh, sociology? What's that? And I was at a curious mind. So I found that. And the thing about it is Freud, like I said, Freud didn't start off as a psychiatrist. He started off as a neurosurgeon, somebody who did brain surgeries. And he transitioned because he knew the anatomy of the brain and understood that. And so he wanted to go to the mind, which is basically how the anatomy of the brain functions.
Yeah. I never knew that about Freud. That's interesting.
Absolutely. I never knew that. But one of the things is a lot of the stuff that Freud talks about is very deep. He talks about, drives, conscious drives, unconscious drives, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, the other than conscious mind, the paraconscious mind, defense mechanisms, and all these abstract things that don't get dealt with in psychiatry. And traditionally, psychiatry wasn't about medications. It was about understanding patients and helping them move forward.
Yeah.
Flash forward to today, where psychiatrists do 15 and 20 and 30-minute medication management appointments all day long. That's all they do is prescribe pills and make sure their patients are taking their pills, that they're working, that they're not having any negative symptoms or positive symptoms or whatever, side effects and things like that. And that's all it is. And when I discovered that during medical school, I said, I can't do that. I can't just go from patient to patient every 20 minutes. Are your meds working? Are any side effects? Okay, let's keep this going. Okay, next person.
It's become med care instead of mental care.
Yes, right? Absolutely. That's a brilliant way to say it. So absolutely. And so I was just like, I did all this. I went through college, did well, was pre-med and pre-law in college, went to law school, then went to med school. I'm in med school. I'm about to finish med school. And all I'm going to be doing for the next 30 years of my life is handing out pills. I'm like, this just isn't going to work for me. This isn't me. I wish I'd been told this a long time ago when I was in college, but that's what it is, sadly. And here's the thing about it. A lot of doctors, and this is why there's such a dissatisfaction and burnout and exhaustion for physicians, because a lot of doctors aren't doing what they want to do. And doctors know that. The general public probably doesn't know that because doctors don't discuss that with the general public, but it's true. A lot of doctors, the residency process or the process of getting a residency, you get choices. You get a choice 1, 2, 3, et cetera, et cetera. And you may not get your first choice. So let's say you're this guy, you worked your tail off, you at the top of your medical school class, the top of your college class, the top of your high school class, you wanted to be an orthopedic or a heart surgeon and you didn't match in that. And you're going to be doing family medicine and vaccine shots for the rest of your life. It's not what a lot of people think it is. So a lot of doctors, and I know tons of them, are not doing. And as soon as they get a chance to transition to something else, especially outside of medicine, they're gone. So for me, I'm true to myself. I've always been true to myself, and I always believe that you'll be successful if you're true to yourself and your relationship with God and the universe or whatever your belief system is. So for me, it doesn't matter if my passion is for raking leaves, then that's what my passion is for. If my passion is for car design, that's what it's for. It doesn't matter. And I don't care what people think, but I have to do what's in sync and in line with who I am, my purpose, my design by this universe. And so
how are you able then to buck not only buck the trend of just, handing out the pills to treat something, which we know, like you said, it masks it, it doesn't treat it. So how are you able to take people below that and get them convinced, right, in a world of instant gratification and, oh, I'm just here to get a pill? How are you able to counsel people to say, listen, do you want this fixed, or do you want to just be medicated? How do you get over that hump so that they'll work with you?
And see, the funny thing is such an obvious question. And it's the same question you raised during our prior podcasts, if you recall. But yeah, it's not easy. And here's the thing. I don't really try to convince people. I don't. I really don't. I try to reason with people and I try to share information with them, but I don't try to convince them. If somebody wants to try an instant fix, if that's their mindset, they're going to do it. I'm not going to be able to convince them otherwise anyway. So I don't try to do that. What I try to do is bridge the gap. So I look at myself as a gap bridger. And I even have a bridge the gap session that people can come for to help bridge the gap between who they've been in the past and who they want to be. It's a process. But what I try to do is help people who don't want to be on a medication and who otherwise would not get any help at all. That's kind of where I see myself and what I do. If somebody wants an instant pill, they're going to get it, whether it's Adderall for ADD, or just to help them perform better in school, or depression or anxiety, if it's Xanax or whatever, regardless of whether it's addictive or not. And here's the thing. People don't get told the truth when they go for those appointments and get prescribed, here's a pill. They don't get told, oh, well, by the way, there's a higher incidence of Parkinsonism or Alzheimer's if you take this at this dose for more than 2 years or 5 years. They don't get told that stuff. Or there's a risk that you're going to have a movement disorder if you take this drug. Or there's a risk that you're going to become dependent if you take Xanax every day or whatever. They don't get told that.
And you see the people who will stay on Xanax or Valium or whatever for 20, 30. I mean, they'll never go off it. They'll never go off.
And it ruins their lives.
I've got a family member who's been on Ativan. I think it's Ativan. I think it might have been something before Ativan.
One of the safer ones.
For 40 years.
Ativan's one of the safer ones. Yeah, no, seriously. And here's the thing. They don't get told that during their appointments when they get handed, here's something that's going to help you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's going to cause you to have memory loss, to decline cognitively slowly over time, higher incidence, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or medication-induced dementia or memory loss or they don't get told that stuff. And addiction. They don't. And that's why we have epidemics. That's why we have an opioid epidemic. That's why we have a benzodiazepine epidemic. That's why we have a stimulant epidemic. And when you read about some of this stuff, so like, for instance, I'm sure you remember this, but there was that guy, I'm sure you remember, I think his last name is Friedman. He's the guy who got in all that trouble over that trading platform.
Yeah. Sam Berkman or. Yeah.
Bankman-Fried.
Yeah. Yep.
And he had this huge trading platform and he took money from that and lent it to another organization. And then that one lost money and everybody called in their bets. And next thing you know, it wasn't worth anything. But here's the thing. He was treated with high doses of Adderall. And I can't remember what it was. It was something crazy. It was like 200 milligrams a day of Adderall when the regular dosage is like 10 or 20. He was at 10 times that. I mean, his mind was just, it was like he might as well have been on methamphetamine.
But who did he go in to get that because it helped him stay up 20 hours a day to do this trading around the world? Is that what?
So here's the thing, and this is why people use stimulants, even people who don't have ADD, because it raises your IQ and your cognition. It allows your brain to do more things, remember more things, work faster, all those things. And so people abuse it. It's very common in law schools. It's very common in medical schools, very common in college, and it's an epidemic, but nobody talks about it. And so here's this guy who's caused one of the biggest financial crashes in U.S. history, specifically with cryptocurrency. And what do you see? High doses of Adderall for years and years and years. And that's not the only one. So when you read about some of these people who do all this fantastical stuff, and it's like, how did this young kid do all this stuff? And there's more to the story. And usually it involves stimulants.
Well, I think they chase that. Once you get that certain taste of fame or success, the fear of losing that is
Yep.
incredible, right? So
Yep.
you will do anything, whether it's an athlete who will take some steroids, whether a guy like this who needs to go 16 hours isn't enough. I need to go 18 hours. 18 hours isn't enough because I got to trade in Europe, then I got to trade in Asia, then I got to trade in America, right? So now I'm at
Bingo.
20 hours. And
Bingo.
so we'll push it. But at some point, something's going to drop, right? I mean, a ball is going to drop. You can't keep that going forever.
And so here's the thing about it. I mean, I've never written about this and I've never done a podcast about it, but it's certainly true. If you look at huge financial crises and crashes and just crazy stuff that people have done with a lot of money, rash stuff that doesn't make sense, it's not logical, it's not ethical, you'll see Adderall there all the time, but nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it.
I would
with
imagine it's
with
a
athletes,
big Wall Street.
with athletes, it's doping or it's testosterone or growth hormone and stuff like that. When they do crazy stuff, it's like, okay, or wrestlers or whatever. And these people go on these anger tirades, racing road rage, Adderall half the time, or too many cups of coffee from Starbucks. So we have a stimulant epidemic in this country that nobody talks about. And so, my thing about it is until something happens, usually people don't enter mental health and wellness or self-improvement until something happens that forces them. Most people don't wake up and go, oh, you know what? I want to be a better person. Let me call Dr. Wright and schedule an appointment. Or let me get a self-help book. Most people don't do stuff like that. They just don't think like that. So most people enter mental health or self-improvement or some other kind of program when life forces them to do it. And they know that the alternative is worse. I can either do this, take this medication, go to this doctor, or what just happened to me that I hadn't planned on is going to continue to happen, and I can't live that way.
Well, a good friend of mine just crashed and burned. He started with an issue with grief, and then it became a little bit too much of the booze, completely affected his body physically, but now he's in pretty rough shape. We're talking about this with my wife, who's 21 years sober, and when it hits the wall, like you say, some people can go into AA and get treatment. Some people have to go into forced 90 days, in a home. Some people have to go in the hospital because they've done so much damage to their body. So you're right. I mean, sometimes even if in your heart stuff's going down the wrong path, you need help, the stuff you got to do. Sometimes you don't do enough self-care to take yourself into someone like Dr. Wright and say, Dr. David, I need help. I'm going down the wrong path fast. And how could we stop me from hitting the wall? But in our society now, it's getting a little bit better to be able to admit that something's wrong. But for the longest time, boy, you didn't admit that.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's still so much shame and stigma, attached to it. And, and the thing about it is, and this goes back to what we were talking about, we were discussing having the episode. And this is one of those grand kind of concepts that I truly believe in. And it's applicable to medications and other things. Nothing in life is free. If you want it and you want to have it and you want to have it the right way and the good way and the way that's long-term and sustainable, it's going to cost you something. And that's true with medications too. If you get an instant fix to anything, there's a price to pay, right? You can have anything you want if you want to pay the price, right? Yeah. If your car has a problem and you want to get it fixed instantly right now, you don't want to leave your desk, you want somebody to come out to your office and fix your car, they'll do it. It'll cost you a lot of money. Yep. Now, if you don't want to pay a lot of money, then you'll call the dealership or you'll call a couple of auto repair places. You'll call your friends, find out who's good, who's reputable, who doesn't overcharge, who's fair, who's reasonable, all those kind of things, and you'll spend less money. But if you want instant gratification, you can get it. If you want filet mignon and lobster mac and cheese and roasted asparagus delivered to your office, there's somebody who's happy to do that for the right price. You can get anything for the right price, but the question is how much is going to cost you in the long term. So nothing in life is free. And the thing about it is instant gratification or believing you can get something either free or instantly is a trap, because you're going to have to do the work later on anyway. And all you're doing is it's kind of like, I always tell people this when it comes to dieting. I have a lot of clients who read my book, The Nutrient Diet, and they want to lose weight or they want to keep their weight in check or they want to make some lifestyle changes slowly or quickly or whatever they want to do. And I always say this, If you have a taste for something, give it to yourself. Just do it in a smaller proportion. If you have a taste for filet mignon, then get an 8-ounce filet mignon and eat half of it and have vegetables. I post what I eat on Facebook almost every day, and people are just like, oh my God, how do you eat that many calories and you're not as big as a hippo? And I'm like, because I don't put this on my post, but I usually only eat half of it. My rule is I finish all the vegetables on the plate, and the rest of the stuff, when I'm full, I don't stuff myself. And I usually have something that's left over for lunch or breakfast or whatever, and I mean, that's kind of where the concept of an omelet comes from. Omelets, French omelets, that's where they come from. You take whatever's left over, you chop it up, you throw it in between some eggs, and that's an omelet. That's where that concept came from. So,
Brilliant.
yeah. So whether it's filet mignon or some chicken or whatever, add some vegetables to it, stir it up, get some eggs, make it into a scramble or an omelet, and you got another meal out of it.
And you post some amazing stuff, man.
But give yourself
some of the food you post.
And here's what people will do. They'll say, you know what, this is what I really want, but you know what, I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm going to have this instead. They try to find a substitute, right? That's called substitution. And then what they'll do is the substitute won't satisfy them, and then they'll go and have what they wanted anyway. But now they've had what they wanted plus something else. So if they had just had what they wanted in the first place and gotten that in a slightly smaller proportion, they would have had 300 calories. But now that they've substituted something for 400 calories and then gone back to what they really wanted anyway, now they're at 800 calories.
You got the other side of that of people going to fake food. It's like, well, I'm going to substitute margarine for butter because I think that that's going to help, right? I'm going to substitute fake egg stuff instead of just real eggs, right? Or I'm going to do
powdered
something like this because I'm told that this has less fat, less sugar, whatever. The challenge is for them to get it to that stage has usually completely screwed up whatever nutrients might have been there, right? And so,
and
going that way, it's worse for you.
Well, and here's the thing too. So one thing is you're not going to get the nutrients that you want from that anyway, from the powdered eggs or the genetically modified, whatever it is. But here's the secondary problem. And this is why we have a rise in autoimmune conditions in Western nations. When you put that foreign stuff that your body that has evolved over millions of years into your body uses it, and your body uses it compared to what it's supposed to be. And then your immune system doesn't recognize what it's been built, and it starts attacking it. So you get all these people with all these immune conditions, MS and lupus and Sjogren's syndrome and ulcerative colitis and, all these autoimmune conditions, just amyloidosis and sarcoidosis. And, they're just all over the place. And it's just like, okay, well, what's causing this? Well, because you're putting stuff in your body that wasn't available to our species for millions of years. And
but like we talked about with the medicine, that's the last place a normal doctor is going to look. When you walk into the doctor with all the items you just mentioned, all the elements you just mentioned, the last thing a normal MD is going to go, well, let's look at your diet.
Yeah,
that's the last thing they're going to say. They're going to go, let's do these tests. Let's do this. Let me put you on a pill. Let me do all this crap, right? Instead of going, what are you eating? Right?
Yep.
What are you putting into your body?
That's the first question they should be asking. That is the first question, because that's where metabolism starts. That's where physiology starts. That's where biochemistry starts with the stuff you put in. It's the building blocks. Just like you're going to build a house. If a house falls in or collapses or needs repairs, you look at the building blocks, right?
You don't start at the roof. You look at the base, the foundation.
You don't put more wood on top of the wood that's rotted. You look at the wood that was there in the first place, or the brick or the foundation or whatever. But that's not what we do, because that doesn't make money. And so here's the thing about it. It's a racket. And, the first thing you should be looking at is what you put in your body, because your body will use almost everything you put in it. The question is what does your body think about it? And what does your body do with it? And is it providing you with fuel? And generally speaking, it's not. It's not uncommon to find people who've been on Prozac or another SSRI or antidepressant for 20 years straight, only to find out they're not depressed. They have a thyroid problem. It's ridiculous. They have a thyroid problem. That's been the problem all along.
Or how many people are forced into this drastic weight loss program or diet change, all these different things when it was their thyroid that was making them fat all along. And it was
So
thyroid issue, right?
Manjaro and Wegovy and all these weight loss drugs and all these things. If you don't get to the root cause of the problem, you're just treating a symptom. And so if somebody's gaining weight quickly and things like that, you don't just reverse the weight, you find the reason why, but we don't do that. We're looking for a quick fix. We don't want to know the reason why. And that's sad. And here's the thing. You're going to create more problems because once you go on Manjaro or Wegovy or one of these things, next you've been using it for a year or two and you can't move your bowels. And I know people like that who cannot move their bowels. And when you read about all the side effects associated with these weight loss, these instant fixes, and you will lose weight. But most of the people that I know have gained it back and now they have nausea all the time. They vomit all the time. They can't keep food down. They can't move their bowels because you're messing with all these things downstream in your physiology that you don't know about. If you take away your appetite, how is that happening? It's through insulin or glucagon and all these other chemicals and hormones that your body uses and has brilliantly created over time to work right. And instead of finding out the real reason why you're gaining weight, maybe it's your thyroid, maybe it's your diet, maybe you're missing something. No, just take a pill and keep doing whatever you're going to do. And then you're going to end up with two problems. The problem that was originally there, and then the additional problems that are caused by the drug that you're using to mask the symptom from the real problem that you have.
Because like we talked about, because there's no free lunch. There's no
free lunch.
These things. You spent 30 years putting on 150 pounds. You're not going to get rid of 30 years of that weight in a week just by doing something that's going to completely alter your body. And again, this is what initially attracted to you. And I know we talked about it on this first podcast, is that the fact that you're willing to look at an all-encompass health source. Like I'm going to treat your body. I'm going to treat your mind. I'm going to treat your soul. I'm going to treat, your health. I'm going to treat your happiness. I'm going to try to encompass all of this instead of just, covering this up, placating you, maybe giving you something to help you lose the weight, giving something to make you feel good mentally, covering it up with all this crap, which we know is a dead end road, or worse, you're significantly hurting yourself in the long run.
But makes billions and trillions of dollars for companies. And that's the whole thing about it. And here's the thing. So one relevant example right now is, the temperatures. I mean, these waves of heat and stuff across the nation and things like that. And during this time of year and other times of the year too, a lot of people complain and say, you know what? I'm tired all the time. I'm lethargic. I'm exhausted. I feel like I'm low on energy. Well, half the people walking around, the real problem is they're dehydrated. They're not drinking enough water. And they'll take all these pills. Oh, well, I'm going to take this so I don't feel so tired. They take a stimulant or they take something that dehydrates them even more when the real problem is they're not drinking enough water.
Or I've got friends who say, I don't know. The problem is I had like 6 Diet Cokes today. I feel like I'm drinking enough fluid. I'm like, dude, no. That's not fluid.
Diet Coke is so bad for you.
Oh, it's poison.
It's poison. The sodium, the fake sugar, the aspartame, all the stuff that's in there, it's awful. It tastes awful too.
They're completely doing the opposite of what they should do. They think they're hydrating, but they're doing the exact opposite of hydrating.
They're dehydrating.
And the other thing is we didn't touch on before, but I wanted to touch on with you. I learned a new phrase about the FDA. Poop. Now I left it. I should have wrote it down. But the FDA is approving that appeal crap that you could put on food to keep it fresh for 150 years, that Bill Gates appeal thing, the one I'm talking about. Have you seen it? So there's a
150 years
forever. I mean, basically it's just the logic behind
it sounds like dog food.
Oh, it's Bill Gates' deal, right? So the logic behind appeal is he's always talking about, well, I'm going to help people in other countries. They don't have refrigeration and stuff like that. So to help elongate the life of foods, fresh fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, is I'm going to spray it with this stuff called Appeal. Cute name, right? And then it's going to keep it fresh for longer, right? Well, the challenge is now it's coming to America. It's coming everywhere. And they're even going to let it start being sprayed on organic food. Now, so you're taking nasty chemical.
I've never heard of this.
It's called pill. You got to look this stuff up. It's absolute poison. So the FDA has now approved it, right? Yeah, take a look real quick over
Called
here.
Appeal?
Appeal, like APPEAL, like appeal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the terminology that the FDA used was so interesting in their approval. If you just look at what look at the FDA approval of it and look at the term, it's like it's something to the effect of, well, we kind of think it's okay.
Right.
So we're going to approve it. What do you mean you kind of think it's okay? No, it's either because down the road this is going to come back to bite them in the ass, like most of the stuff that they approve, right?
But the FDA doesn't function the way that it used to. The FDA
no,
just rubber stamp
they're just an arm of the corporations now.
Bingo.
They
Absolutely.
approve what it's going to get them grants or money or funding, or when these guys leave the FDA, they've got a job waiting for them somewhere. It's all baloney. But this appeal is scary because they did have to put a label on it. And now they're pressing, since it's got FHA approval, they may not have to label it. So you don't know if you're eating this or not. And once they start putting on organic, she thinks you're getting fresh organic food that's sprayed with this poison. It's unbelievable. Now, when is that going to come back to bite us? Right? How long is that going to take until we're going, oh, wow, we screwed that one up? It's coming.
Wow. So I'll definitely be checking that out. But here's another thing that's similar to that is the whole thing. Remember, probably, I'm trying to think around the exact year, but I believe it was around 2000, 2002, 2003, when they first started talking about genetically modified foods.
Yep. Yeah.
And they were talking about specific, and now there are all these companies now that make impossible meat and things like that. And, and all this stuff. But here's the thing. I remember when they were talking about it, and when it first came out, there was a rule that they didn't have to put a label on it. And I think it was later on that they determined that they could put a label on it. And I remember right after they came out with that, I love a good, a good old fashioned cheeseburger, hamburger, a mushroom and Swiss burger, bacon and cheddar, whatever. Yeah. Love a good burger. And I remember I went to Walmart or somewhere and I got a burger. And, if you grow up in America and your family eats hot dogs and hamburgers and stuff like that, you learn how to make a hamburger patty and you know what it feels like and all that kind of stuff. But I made this hamburger patty and it just did not feel right. And it was really cheap too. And I was just like, this is not natural beef. I don't know. And it didn't cook right. And it made this weird kind of red stuff in the skillet. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell this is, but this is not 100% beef. I don't know what this is.
Well, and you look at the stuff that they put in that now, that it's cheaper and the additives that they can put in there. But you also look at, if you go to the store and you buy 100% Angus beef or USDA beef, the ingredients are beef, and you go to this other Beyond Beef or whatever this other garbage is, and you read the ingredients, you go, wait a minute,
dextro.
Tell me I'm healthier eating that when for 8,000 years I've been eating that. I mean, come on, it's absolutely absurd.
8 million years.
You're probably too young to remember this, but when they first were trying to push aspartame down our throat, they mailed everyone in the United States gumballs. You got to look this one up.
And they had those red gumballs that had that weird, nasty taste.
They were like blue, green, red, right? They were gross. 5 colors of gumballs flavored with aspartame to say, hey, try these. You don't need sugar. This stuff's delicious. And they let them send everyone in the country these gumballs. And you're going, how is that okay? How is that okay? That's complete madness, because kids
it's like mailing everybody cigarettes.
Yeah.
Or mailing everybody a bag of weed or some cocaine.
Right. Well, and when the kids used to sell the candy cigarettes, right? So kids.
I remember that. I had that was one of my favorite candies when I was a kid, and then I ended up becoming a smoker.
Yeah. Yeah,
for 30 years.
I mean, these things that they do.
I thought those candy cigarettes were so good, and I mean, and then I ended up becoming a smoker.
Yeah, because you had that reflex reaction, right?
Association.
I remember when they had them in bubble gum, where you took off the wrapper and you either had the bubble gum or you had the candy version that had a
Yep.
little red tip, the whole thing. But see, this is how they program us, right?
Indoctrinate.
They start it with, like they did with margarine, which we know margarine is complete poison, right? They get enough doctors to come out and say, hey, cigarettes are good for your lungs, right?
Right.
And then they get enough doctors to say, hey, you're going to have a heart attack if you eat too much butter. So you should eat margarine. It's like,
Right.
wait a minute, we've been eating butter forever. And
Yep.
we didn't have heart attacks like this.
Right.
And margarine is poison, right?
Yep. And then after they pushed that for 20 or 30 years, then they came back, or parties came back and go, oh, well, you know what? Cardiologists and stuff. Well, it's actually better and more healthy if you eat this, if you eat the butter in smaller proportions instead of eating the margarine, because the margarine causes all these other problems.
Yep. Yeah,
And that's the
back
thing
to the
about it.
things you talked about, the autoimmune diseases, the inflammation, all
Well,
this.
and that's the thing about it. It's corrupt, and you won't get the real information. And by the time you find out, it's 20, 30 years down the road, it's too late.
Yeah. And
You've
that's
been
what I think
taking
we're
whatever
going
this stuff is for
that's
30
what we're going to see with this appeal stuff, right? This is what we're going to see with some of this RMNA stuff. I mean, like we talked about on the first podcast, RMNA stuff, like you say, some of it's going to be very helpful for you. But on the other hand, maybe some of it's not so helpful for you. I think we're going to be seeing some stuff that they're pushing now that we're going to look back and say, wow, but they don't care. They get the drug companies get immunity. You can't sue them. You can't sue the government. The FDA just slams it. The people who approved it are long gone, right? They got their golden parachutes, so they don't care. But in the meantime, we're the ones stuck with all these problems.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's scary.
There's no accountability.
What's the deal with this? We were kind of going to chat on that too, but I'm sorry I got us on that first issue with the psychology, because it's so interesting to me. But this free society thing, that we were going to talk about, and
absolutely.
For me, my wife worked for the county in the welfare to work program forever. So it used to be where it was a hand up, not a hand out. People looked for work. You help them look for work. They check in. Hey, how's it going looking for work? Now, you literally cannot even ask someone on assistance if they're looking for work.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's give me more, give me more, give me more.
Well, and one word comes to mind: entitlements, and the word underlying it, entitlement, entitled. And people are entitled these days. And so, and that brings us back to what we were talking about before. It's a shortcut, just like a lot of pills. Not every pills. There are a lot of pills that are good for you. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to take a pill, period. But it shouldn't be the first thing you go through. It's a shortcut. And if it's a shortcut for you, and you're using it as a shortcut, there's a price to pay. The same thing is true when you get stuff for free. If you give stuff to people for free, it teaches them that they're supposed to get it automatically and that they don't have to work for it. And what they do is they work less. And if you go back, when you go back, to the laws of physics and things like that, Newton's law specifically, bodies in motion tend to stay in motion and bodies at rest tend to stay at rest. And so if you've got somebody sitting around getting stuff, you think one day they're going to wake up and go, you know what? I need to contribute. I'm going to start working. No, they're going to be like, this is nice. I'm comfortable now. They're going to get,
in California, I think they added it up to about $49,000 a year. You can earn, theoretically, whatever the term is, $49,000 a year not working, right? Between the rent assistance, the medical assistance, your free phone, your SNAP cards, all the things that you get equals to about $49,000 a year now in California. So you've got people after COVID lockdown going, why should I go back to work? I'm not going back to work. This is great. My challenge was, and I know my wife, Elise, and I have talked about this a lot because she did it, like I said, for almost 30 years, is that the generational effect that it had. Grandma was on assistance, had the kids. Now the daughters are on assistance. They have the kids. Now their kids are on assistance. They can, and it just completely changes an entire generation of people. And it's horrible. It's horrible what this has done.
Well, and you know, I'm not a big fan of stereotypes, but what I can say is some stereotypes are true. And I mean, that doesn't mean every stereotype is true, but some stereotypes are true. And here's the thing is you've got these just like you have generations of trauma and mental health and things like that. You've got generations, and you could almost say that it's a mental health issue too, but you've got generations of people who are trapped in entitlement. You've got the grandmother who had 8 kids and was on assistance. And you've got the daughter who has 8 kids. And one of the daughters has 6 kids and she's on assistance. And 5 of the other daughters are on assistance. And the next generation is on assistance. And it's just this huge warp where people get kind of trapped into this intergenerational system of de-empowerment. They're not being empowered. That's the opposite of entitlement. When you're entitled, that de-empowers you. You can't be entitled and empowered at the same time. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. Just like something can't be an asset and a liability at the same time. It can't be a proton and an electron at the same time. Not that I know of, and I'm not a physicist, but it just doesn't work that way. So the thing about it is, once you start giving stuff away or giving people things or making them think it's free, then they're never going to get out of that system. And here's the thing. It's not free anyway. Just because you didn't pay for it doesn't make it free. It means somebody else funded it for you. Yeah. There is no such thing as free. If you get something, and that's another law of physics. Matters, neither destroyed or created. It just transfers from one form to another. Yeah. So if something transfers to you, it didn't just appear. It got transferred from someone else. Somebody else funded it and paid for it.
Yeah, and you're right. We don't. I don't want to generalize, or I don't want to pigeonhole any type of people in any essential way, because it's true. It's if there was abuse, physical, mental, sexual abuse in a family, many times that transfers. A person who was abused end up being an abuser, and it goes on, through the different family chains. Same thing with alcoholism. You could see, the grandfather was an alcoholic, dad was an alcoholic, one of the children an alcoholic. I mean, so it's not, we don't want to pigeonhole anyone just on entitlements and stuff like that. But it's that dynamic is so strong, right?
It is.
And unfortunately, it hasn't gotten better. Right. It's not like we're working to empower people to get them better. It seems like we're going the other way, right? Where it's like, let's lock people down more and subdue people more by giving them the gambling, giving them the legalized drugs, giving them the games and and keep them distracted, which keeps them to having the motivation to want to do like what you do. And that's why I just love you. You're a grower, you're a builder, you're a thinker, you're a risk taker. You're always pushing. It's just so rare to find people who are doing that anymore.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I think that is also a generational thing. I mean, when I look at my parents, they were highly educated. They didn't grow up privileged or anything. My grandparents the same way. My grandparents became teachers, and they started off as sharecroppers. And that's one step away from slavery. I mean, my grandparents started off as sharecroppers and they died millionaires. And it was because they worked hard, and they didn't not work is a better way of putting it. They did. They just had a work ethic. And that's a big difference between what's being pushed now. I mean, when I go somewhere like a restaurant or something, or a store or something, I see people doing nothing. And I'm just like, when I worked, I worked all through school. When I was old enough to mow lawns and be independent, I mowed all my grandparents' real estate properties and made tons of money, thousands of dollars during the summer doing it. Right. And I did it. I didn't ask for raises. I didn't do anything. I did it and I made money,
I mean, you didn't go on strike.
Right. I didn't go on strike. I didn't ask for mass. I just did the work and I got it done. And when I was old enough after that, in addition to mowing lawns for my grandparents and their real estate properties and stuff, I started working in a concession stand at the local games. And then after that, when I got old enough, or actually technically, before I was legally old enough to work, I actually lied about my age and started working at a store at the mall at age 15, you know? And I worked my tail off while, I worked full time all through high school. I worked full time all through college. I even worked full time in our med school's library while doing 3 master's degrees consecutively in medical school. And kids today, now there are exceptions. There are some kids out there who work their tails off, right? But kids today expect everything to be handed down. What do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I'm going to be like Kim Kardashian. I'm going to be a social media
I'm going to be an influencer.
Well, is that really a job? So I mean, kids have this, and I'm not trying to pick on kids, but a lot of people these days just don't have a work ethic at all. They think everything is free, and that's the problem. It's not free. You just didn't pay for it. And I wish that word would just get eliminated from the human vocabulary. I wish the word free would just disappear, because here's the thing. Number one, it's not free. Somebody else paid for it. Yep. And then number two, it's disempowering you, because you're not going to grow the mental and physical and other psychological and emotional muscles that you need, like a work ethic. That's a muscle to become resilient and successful if everything's given to you.
Well, look at your grandparents. I mean, all you had to say was to let us know about them were the two things. They were sharecroppers. They were the difference between margarine and paint, right? They were that close to being slaves, right?
Absolutely.
Then you said in the next breath, I grew up mowing the lawns of their rental properties. So your grandparents went from technically being slave, making a tiny wage, being sharecroppers, to owning multiple properties, right? Because that was their mindset, right? How many people in their situation did not end up owning multiple rental properties, right? And instead of your parents looking at everyone else going, well, no one else is doing it, so we can't do it. Right.
Or give me something.
Give it to me. We're not going to be able. We're going to have to stay here because people like us don't move out of where we are. People like us don't get more. We're here, and that's what entitlements do. They steal from your soul. They
steal your drive and your motivation and
just your self-worth when you're just always waiting for that check. Jim Rome had a great idea. You ever heard of Jim Rome?
Yeah.
Great guy. Love Jim Rome. He always said, if you're on welfare, that's awesome. My wife is on welfare. I've got friends who've been on welfare. People go through challenges, right? You need a hand up sometime. But
right, a helping hand.
When you're in that housing, right, and I come to bring you your check, your welfare check on Friday, right? I'm going to bring you the welfare check, and I'm going to bring you a gallon of paint. And when I come back next week to give you your next welfare check, this porch should be painted, sanded, and improved, right? And when I come back the next week, I'm going to bring you something else. And this house that you're renting or you're getting for free, put a little work into it. Improve that house. I know it's not yours, but improve that house. Do something for what you're getting, right? Because that will give you self-worth. And I think that's the biggest, ugliest thing of entitlements and free crap is it steals your self-worth. And that's horrifying.
I agree. It's de-empowering. And the funny thing is it's the opposite of empowerment. And it's free. So you paint something as empowering somebody by giving them something when it actually de-empowers them.
Yeah, I do a lot of Section 8 because we own a property management company, right? I deal with a lot of Section 8. Most landlords won't text Section 8. Most property managers won't even look at them. We say, bring them on. I call the caseworkers down there, go, hey, do you have a good family? I got a great house that would be perfect for Section 8. Good owner. The house is nice, not a slumlord, whatever. I encourage the Section 8, right? But here's the thing. When I met these people, this one gal, I'd always tell her, you know what? Because she knew the system. Not only did she get Section 8, but she got everything else, right? She had 6 kids. I think she claimed 12 kids. She had a husband and a boyfriend. I don't think she claimed either one of them, right? But I loved her, right? Because she made me laugh. And I'd always tell her I won't say her name, but I used to tell her all the time. I said, you know what? if you played it straight and you used all this knowledge and all this effort that you used to scam the system, I'd tell her straight out like that.
Right.
Because I know what you're doing. I'm gonna never turn you in. It's none of my business, right? You got caseworkers. I go, but if you use this ingenuity to put it towards a business sense, girlfriend, you'd be a multi-millionaire.
Absolutely.
Because you're brilliant. You have figured out the scam. You know this system better than the caseworkers. You know the system better than the government, right? If you just put this to work, you'd be a multi-millionaire. But it's that mindset of I'm just going to get the man, or I'm going to get everything I can. It's like, no. If you shifted that, man, she would have been amazing. She's brilliant.
Well, it's like, it's like one of those movies or TV shows, but I think I remember more movies where somebody like plans a heist, like Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 13 or whatever.
Yeah.
And they plan some heist, and of course it goes wrong and they end up in prison or something like that. But like all the time and energy that you put into planning how you were gonna, steal the royal jewels or Picasso's and all this stuff, these people will plan this stuff for 5 years, and it's just like, okay, 5 years, you could have gone to law school, you could have finished college, you could have become a manager at, like
exactly. You're talking about movies. One of my favorite movies is, you ever seen the Thomas Crown Affair with Pierce Brosnan? It's a remake of Paul Newman, and
I've fallen asleep like every single time I've tried to watch that movie. It's like Pelican Brief. There's some movies, I don't know if it's the music or the pace, it just puts me to sleep. I'll have to have some coffee before I watch it next time.
The reason I love it is because the guy is brilliant hedge fund guy, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know what the Steve McQueen was from the 50s, but the remake with Pierce Brosnan, he's a brilliant hedge fund guy.
Love Pierce Brosnan. Actor, though, one of my favorites.
He's brilliant. He's so good in this movie. Gosh, I wish I could remember the gal who played Renee Russo. Renee Russo's in it. She is. These two, the chemistry, they just like flies off the screen. I can't believe you fall asleep for this. You got to rewatch it.
I have.
Right, so these two,
like 3 times, I've tried to watch it and fall asleep.
He is a freaking international art thief. Like, he could buy anything that he steals. Easily, right. He could afford it because he's a multi-billionaire. But he's lost it. He's so good at what he does, he's bored with it, right? So he's
stealing out of boredom.
So he's stealing because that's where he gets the juice. And I just think that is such life, right? I mean, like with you, right? When you were talking about when you were in school, because I rewatched our first podcast. It's like, you get that report card. It's like, hey, man, David's brilliant. He does amazing work, but he's disruptive in the class. And you're like, it's because I finished so quickly with what you're giving me. I'm bored. The teachers, the schools need to challenge me more, right? And sometimes I think these people who are on assistance and stuff like that, not all of them, I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but I think, they're bored. I
think a lot of them have given. I think they're bored. I think a lot of them have given up. It's a combination of things. It's like addiction. Addiction isn't just one thing. It's not just receptors. It's not just genetics. It's the circumstances of your life at the time and your personality and all. You add up all this stuff. It's just like, let me think of an example. I always say anything that somebody else can make, regardless of their culture or heritage, I can make it. And so I had a taste for some egg drop soup. I love Chinese food. I love Japanese food. And I was just like, you know what? If those Chinese women can make egg drop soup, and they've been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years, why can't I? So I looked at the recipe and I made egg drop soup, and I even improved upon it. I made egg drop soup. I love onion soup, French onion soup. I love mushroom soup or cream of mushroom soup. And I love spinach soup. So I said, why don't I do egg drop soup with spinach, mushrooms, and onions? And it was delicious. And I mean, I made it myself from scratch and
posted it too. I remember
I did. I've made it another time.
I love egg drop soup.
I mean, I do, but the thing about it is, it's a process, and it's like, okay, if somebody else can do this, why can't I do it?
And I think that's why you like to cook so much, and get it wrong. Because the way your brain works, I think that's why you like to cook so much. I mean, I think you like that process of the cooking, but also it seems like you experiment with it a lot. Like you said, instead of just taking the egg drop soup recipe, you're like, I'm going to take this egg drop soup recipe, and I'm going to doctor this up. I'm going to,
Right.
right. And I think because you like to cook. I mean, you
I
post.
love it. I love the cook. I'm a foodie. I love the taste of food. But the thing about it is you have to be willing to take a risk, and you have to be willing to be wrong. I'll tell you, it is not fun when you find a recipe or find something online and you cook it and you spend an hour making it and baking it and then you F it up. That is not fun. And it's like, okay, well, let's call Domino's because I just messed up this meal that I've been cooking for 3 years. I mean, 3 hours or whatever. I mean, it's not fun, but you have to take the risk. You're not going to always get it right the first time. And I think a lot of times with these people, it's multifactorial. Number one, you sent them a message that they don't have to work to get stuff. Number one. So you de-empowered them. Number two, because they're getting stuff and they don't have to fill a need, they don't feel motivated because why would they feel motivated if you've already have it? You're not going to be motivated to save up for a car and work summers if your parents just give you one. Why would you? Because you don't have to. And then number three, I think it's also boredom. So when you add those three together, you have a group of people that you have kind of let know that there's no point in them doing anything or acting. And that's not good for society, and it's generational. And so their kids are gonna learn that, and their kids' kids are gonna learn that. And it's just like this black hole. And so when you look at, I say this and just because I'm multi-ethnic doesn't allow me to say stuff like this. I figured I'd probably say it anyway, but I am multi-ethnic. My heritage is African American, it's American Indian, and it's Jewish. And the thing about it is,
wait. African American, Indian, and Jewish.
American Indian and Jewish, yeah,
not bad.
Yeah. And
have you tried matzo ball soup? Have you tried?
I love matzo ball soup. I will make anything. I will anything. I make the most incredible. I will challenge any Italian person out there, and I do it all the time when I go to restaurants. I make a 7-cheese 13-layer lasagna that is to die for, and I will challenge anybody's Sicilian or other lasagna. It's incredible. It costs like $300 and it takes about 8 hours to make, but it's incredible. But here's the thing. My whole shtick is that if somebody else can do it, I can do it too. And I want to be the best version of me possible. And I can pass that on to a future generation. And that's what my parents taught me. And that's what my grandparents taught them. And I think that work ethic is just there. When you and like I said, I'm not just saying this because I'm multi-ethnic, but I'm saying this because it's actually absolutely true. Even though there are exceptions to the rule, when you look at certain groups of people become really, really successful in the United States. Certain groups of people do. And I'll name them all, and if somebody wants to call me out on it, I'd be happy to have a talk with them.
It's a fact.
But certain groups of people have a work ethic, and how far back it started, you don't know. But and there are caricatures about it. You know what I mean? Some people will only go to a Jewish doctor. Jews work hard, right? People from India who come to this country, 80% of them become doctors. The rest of them become lawyers, engineers, technicians, stuff like that. They have a work ethic. People from Jamaica, every person I know from Jamaica has 8 sources of income. I mean, and I remember I'm a comedy lover. And one of my favorite shows growing up was In Living Color. And they'd always have these skits of the Jamaican family versus the family from Trinidad. And it would go like this. Yeah, man, I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I own 3 restaurants. I also am a realtor. And I have 18 other jobs. And they're like, oh, I got you beat, man. I'm Haitian or I'm from Trinidad. Me got 19 jobs, man. And I mean, like, and there's a reason why people joked about that. It's because it's true. The environment there bred a group of people willing to work hard and do whatever it takes to achieve whatever they consider to be success. And they weren't going to give up. They didn't care how many jobs it took. They were going to do what they needed to do to move ahead.
I've said this 100 times. I say it to people that I'm working with, people on housing, because I'm always like, listen, guys, tell me your story. I worked hard to get you in this house. Love you guys. Love your family. I wanted you to have this house, right? You were good people. But tell me what's the story, right? And I always tell people, look, there's no such thing as this is the hand I was dealt. That's complete crap, right? I said,
Right.
a family that's been here for 150 years that are still in the same spot, and then a family that comes over here from China, and in one generation, 3 of the kids are doctors. The family
Yep.
has a strip mall. They own a strip mall with a nail salon, a massage parlor, and
18
electric,
nail salons. Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And it's like,
Yeah.
how did they come here not
Yep.
speaking the language, not knowing anything, not usually not having any money? They put their kids through school. Their kids, the next generation now, are super successful. They've bought property. They own businesses. How did that happen?
Hard work, sacrifice, and delayed gratification. Those
That-
3 ingredients
yes.
do it. And here's the thing. You're exactly right. And if you look at certain groups, they do. People from Africa come over here, and within one generation, they're doctors. People from India, within one generation, they're doctors or lawyers. People from Israel, people from, you could go down the list, but there's certain people, and it's because it's part of their culture. Hard work, sacrifice, delayed gratification, values, work ethic, fortitude, empowerment, resilience. All those things are part of their culture. And that's what we have to do with people. Instead of giving people stuff, we need to teach them how to be resilient. And that will go on for future generations to come.
It's another way to control the people, is by giving that stuff and keeping them down and expect their vote or whatever, but keeping them down. It's like when I went through my cancer, right? I can't tell you how many doctors I had, from my dentist who pulled out my teeth, from my surgeon, from my oncologist, from my radiologist. I mean, through all these doctors that I had, probably 9 or 10 doctors, one was a white woman American. They were Chinese, they were Indian, they were from Bangladesh, they were from Mexico, they were from all over the world, right? Who've come here and become doctors and surgeons and radiologists, oncologists, right? Except this one gal who was born and raised in America. So, I mean, think about that. Out of 9 or 10 doctors, only one. Now, why can't a generation who's been here for 200 years, what's stopping them except for that mindset, like you said, right? That
generational,
mindset.
intergenerational.
It's got to stop. I mean, we don't need to import 30 million people from other countries to work here. We've got an entire workforce here.
I agree. No, absolutely. And I mean, we shouldn't. And it happens all the time. And here's the thing. Instead of, to a certain extent, a lot of people would rather just hand somebody a check rather than teach them. And that's the sad part. And so the people who've already, the groups of people, the families, the generations that have already been taught that, they keep going into perpetuity. The ones who haven't, who have been expecting a check, they go into perpetuity too. And then you've got these vast differences where one group goes in one direction, another one goes in another direction. And it doesn't change over time, just like velocity, and it's physics too. It's not just sociology and psychology, it's physics. If you hit a ball in a certain direction, it's going to continue to go in that direction until it stops. If you hit a baseball with a bat into the field, it's not going to turn back and go the opposite direction. That's not how physics works.
Right.
On a cartoon show, it will, where, if you're watching Tom and Jerry or something like that, they always play around with physics and it's funny. But in real life, that's not how it happens. So it's not just psychology. It's not just sociology. It's not just anthropology. It's physics.
Yeah.
It's physics.
Yeah. And there's, gosh, you and I just tear through time like crazy. I just love we just touched on 5 million subjects. It's just awesome.
Sure.
But we're going to wrap this up because I know you've got 5 million just things going on. You're just always so busy. So I'm just so grateful for your time and your knowledge on this. So just again, Dr. David, I know you've got the podcast, which is Fresh Start with Dr. David. Mm-hmm. Fresh Start with Dr. David. You've got the podcast, Fresh Start with Dr. David. You've got the offices that you're doing. You've got 3 books. I think you said you have another one on the line or something. Are you?
No, one of my, no, I was so proud. I think I told you about this one. No, it's not another book. I actually, the funny thing about it, I'll admit this, and I haven't done anything with it. But after I wrote my books, I came up with a list of like 600 different books I wanted to write. on all kinds of topics relating to from physics to psychology to anthropology to biology and everything else. And I kind of put that on hold. I was just like, I've got time later. But no, here's the thing. Everybody has a story to tell. And so one of my clients, she's been a client of mine for 4 years. Her name is Phoenix Soul. We did a 2-part series on self-love and self-care. When she first came to me 4 years ago, I said, you need to write a book. You need to teach others. You need to tell your story, and you need to help others. And then next thing I know, she contacts me, and then she asked me what I thought and presented me with her book, Be Your Thief by Phoenix Soul. And she made the bestsellers list.
Wow.
And it's a gorgeous book. I mean, honestly, just the cover brings peace to me. I mean, seeing this on my desk when I walk in every day, it just brings me peace. And this is a picture of her right there on the back cover. And I mean, she's an actress. She has a show. She has an album. She does all kinds of stuff. But
she's a goddess. Holy crap!
I told her,
goddess.
I was just like, you need to tell your story. She's very empathic, and that's one of the ways that we really sync is we're both feelers. We feel things. Yeah. And I said, you need to tell your story. You need to write a book. And then she wrote a book. So it's really good. I've been recommending it to everybody. I bought 5 copies. Bought one for my mother, my brother, my dad. I brought 2 copies for me.
So what's her name? What's her name again?
Her name is Phoenix, and that's spelled just like Phoenix Soul. And Soul is spelled SOHL, I believe. Let me just make sure.
Okay.
SOHL. She's on Facebook. She's one of my Facebook friends, so you can connect with her. She's one of my Facebook friends. Her book made the bestsellers list, and it's a workbook. So it's not a book you just read. It's an interactive thing where it tells you things, it asks you probing questions, and it's to help you be at peace and to build relationships.
Wow. Well, not only am I linking your books to our website, we're revamping the website, so it's coming up, but linking your books to the website, but I'll get her permission to link her book to the website so people can reach out and kind of take a look on that there. But see, that's the point here is like I mentioned on our first podcast, you were immediately so giving with your time. You were so engaging. I know you're a healer. I know you care about people, and I know you're worried about the direction of things. And I think that's why we got on that topic of free stuff. We're not picking on people who are needing assistance, or even
we're trying to change a system from the inside out.
Exactly. It's trying to empower people to understand, like that gal who is one of our houses on housing. It's like, I just love her. I tell her every time, I'm like, come to work with me, get your real estate license, or do some, but you have got to take what's in your brain and turn it in a different direction, because you are so talented. And she's young. She's only like 42 years old. It's like,
well, and here's the big thing. It robs them of pride. I'm proud of what I achieved. I love having kids. I have a partner with Clayton County School District. I go out there, I mentor and talk to kids. I have kids that come out to my office who want to be a doctor, who want to do this, or want to start a business or whatever. I have pride, and pride cometh before a fall. It's not a bragful kind of pride. It's a pride in giving back and magnifying what God has given me. That kind of pride. And when people sit at home and don't earn things and you de-empower them, they lose that opportunity to be proud, not just of their own work, but to pass that on to the next generation.
Sharing success, being successful, and sharing that success is not being boastful, prideful. What that's doing is giving people a direction, showing people that they can do it. And that's what I tell this friend of mine. I tell all the time, I said, you know what? It's got to be stressful doing what you do, because you're always worried that other shoe's going to drop. They're going to find out about my husband. Blah, 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 blah.
It's a job. They created a job.
It is a job. And it's harder than and I said, it's about flow. It's about flow. Your flow right now is negative, right? You're making a bunch of money. You're getting a bunch of free time, but your flow is negative.
You're a leech.
Turn that and put your energy in a different direction, right? Now your flow is going to just take off. It's going to explode. You're going to have less stress. You're going to have more money than you think you're getting now.
Way more.
You're going to create. And just your energy is going to change.
You're going to glow. You're going to glow.
Big time. Big
Can't
time.
glow if you're not proud of what you do. I
Yeah.
mean, I wake up every day and go to bed every night thankful. I mean, I'm not just saying that, I really do. And I ask for more. But when I ask for more, I ask for more responsibility. If I say, God, I want this or I want that, I also say, allow me to do this. So if I want this or if I want that, allow me to help 10 more people. I really do. I believe that.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a change of the verbiage. It's a change of the mindset. It's like when you get up, you go, ah, crap, I got to go to work. I got to go to the office. I got to talk to these clients. Just say, no, no, no. I get to go into my office. I get to
it's
go
a
to work. I
privilege.
get to help these people, right?
It's a privilege.
It's just that little change that'll change your whole mindset. And anyways, we could go on. You're amazing. I'm just so grateful for you once again. Now, how can people reach Dr. David and just a quick little blurb for us so that people can get you?
Yeah. Yeah. So they can find me on Facebook. I have several free, completely free, even though I hate to use that word, but it is free. Actually, it's not free. You should post and give back in the groups.
Yeah.
But I've got several Facebook groups that you don't have to pay for with money. And they're empowering. And I post up positive affirmations, motivational quotes, wisdom, all kinds of things. And you can find those. One is called Fresh Start with Dr. David, Facebook group. And there are a couple other ones. The biggest one is Grow, capital GROW, just like it sounds. And Grow is free. And Grow is the one that's open. So it's not one that's a private group. So you can join Grow. You can see what other things people are posting. You can also obviously check out my podcast, Fresh Start with Dr. David. I have lots of guests. I had you as a guest. We talked about grief and bereavement. I've got a lot of great upcoming guests where we're going to talk about a lot of things from the soul to self-empowerment, to renewal, to burnout and exhaustion. I've got a cardiologist who's a holistic cardiologist coming on next week, who has a holistic approach to treating heart patients or people with hypertension and things like that. So that's going to be next week. And you can check out my books, The Nutrient Diet, which is diet, nutrition, weight loss, lifestyle management. And I have two self-improvement books, Tomato Bisque for the Brain and Sweet Potato Pie for the Spirit, Soul, and Psyche. And you can also find me online at www.atlantacoaching.com.
Love it. Love it. And I mean, what you're doing, what you're giving back to, man, I love that self-care one about burnout. That's going to be a good one. And the dog.
Everybody's burned out these days. And technology is part of the reason why people are burned out. Technology is burning people out.
We were supposed to have more time with that stupid little thing in our hand. It was supposed to free us up. It's not. It's literally
it's fool's gold.
Life out of us.
It's fool's gold.
Yeah.
It's fool's gold. It's fool's gold.
Sucking the life out of us. So that's going to be a good one. Self-care is really huge. I got a podcast with a friend of mine, Tracy Jepson, where we cover a lot of that, where she hit the wall. And you know, it's what you're doing is huge. And that's why I love having you on, and I'm grateful for your time. I think more people need to listen to what you're saying. More people need to engage in what you're doing and help you grow, because the more people that you can touch, not only does it help you and your family and your generations, but it's going to help them. And I know that's what your main focus is. So, Dr. David Wright, again, please check out Fresh Start with Dr. David at the minimum, besides his books. And we really appreciate you being on, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. And I look forward to our next episode about grief and bereavement, too.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go deep in that one.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. See you later.